Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. The drug makers Pfizer and BioNTech say their experimental vaccine is over 90% effective in preventing coronavirus. The vaccine has been tested on over 43,000 people in 6 countries and no safety concerns have been raised. US President-elect Joe Biden welcomes the development but warns of a long battle ahead as the country's caseload approaches 10 million. Globally, there have been more than 50 million infections and over 1.2 million deaths. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev says 23 more villages have been liberated from the Armenian occupation. The Foreign Ministry of Azerbaijan says the Armenian army is continuously targeting residential areas in and around Nagorno-Karabakh. Meanwhile, Armenia says 44 of its soldiers have been killed, pushing its military death toll to over 1,200. The rival Libya factions have begun UN-brokered political peace talks in Tunisia's capital. The talks are aimed at ending nearly a decade of chaos and bloodshed by arranging elections. Those are the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. The drug makers Pfizer and BioNTech say that experimental vaccine is over 90% effective in preventing coronavirus. The vaccine has been tested on over 43,000 people in 6 countries and no safety concerns have been raised. The companies plan to apply for emergency approval to use the vaccine by the end of this month. What in this report?
As the world scrambles to tackle a second wave of coronavirus, the announcement of a potential vaccine has sparked hopes of a return to normalcy. US President-elect Joe Biden welcomed the development, but warned of battle ahead as the country's caseload approaches 10 million. The situation is not much different in the rest of the world, with most of the countries introducing new restrictions to tackle the outbreak. Be it Europe, Asia, Middle East or Latin America, countries are registering a spike in new infections. But the virus has hit the United States, India and Brazil the hardest. With nearly 24 million infections, the 3 countries account for 48% of the global cases. The virus has claimed more than 1.25 million lives worldwide, besides rattling economies.
Pakistan has registered 9 COVID-19 deaths in the last 24 hours, pushing the tally to nearly 7,000. The health ministry says 1,650 people tested positive for the virus overnight. The ministry said nearly 345,000 cases so far, almost 319,000 patients have recovered. It added there are nearly 19,000 active cases in the country, while 972 remain critical. As the country witnesses second wave of the virus, the National Command and Operations Center has imposed fresh curbs on gatherings. The NCOC has issued strict guidelines for venues, timings and sitting arrangements on events. Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa has met Chinese envoy Nong Rong at General Headquarters in Rawalpindi. The military's media wing said the two discussed bilateral relations, including regional security. It said the two noted exceptional ties between the two countries and pledged to further improve relations. The Chinese ambassador lauded Pakistan's contributions for conflict prevention in the region. Azerbaijan says the Armenian troops have again targeted civilians with various small arms and mortars. The defense ministry says Azeri military's retaliation dealt heavy damage to Armenian troops in the Khojavand region. It says the operations in the Aghdare, Aghdam, Khojavand and Gobadli fronts continue with varying intensity. The ministry says the enemy was forced to retreat in some areas of the front. The latest fighting erupted a day after Azerbaijan said it liberated the city of Shusha from Armenia after 28 years. The city is considered a strategic fortress and a key to control over the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Over 1,200 people have been killed in the nearly 6 weeks of fighting in and around Nagorno-Karabakh. In Afghanistan, at least 4 people have been killed and 40 others wounded after a suicide car bomber targeted a police base in Kandahar. Security officials say civilians and soldiers were among those wounded. No group has claimed the responsibility for the attack. Separately, 2 civilians were wounded in a roadside mine blast in Kabul. Violence has soared in Afghanistan in recent months, even as the Taliban and the government negotiators hold peace talks in Qatar. Libya's rival factions began much-awaited political peace talks in Tunisia's capital, Tunis. The talks were brokered by the UN with the goal of drawing a roadmap to presidential and parliamentary elections. The UN selected 75 delegates from Libya to take part in the 6-day forum aimed at ending the political chaos. Tunisian President Kais Saied attended the opening ceremony, calling the forum historic by all measures. He added that the UN efforts aim to set clear measures and specific dates to reach a peaceful solution to the conflict. Earlier, the top UN official in Libya, Stephanie Williams, said preparatory meetings have been positive. In northeastern Syria, 4 US soldiers have reportedly been killed in the roadside IED blast in Hasakeh province. Syrian state media says the slain troops were taken to a US base in the Shadadi area. It said American forces cordoned off the area after the explosion tore through a US military vehicle. It said US forces in Syria and their Kurdish allies control much of the area, including major oil fields. The US has around 100 troops and 6 Bradley fighting vehicles deployed in the region. It ramped up its military presence back in September after skirmishes with the Russian army. Earlier, 3 civilians were killed and 9 others injured in a landmine explosion in Hama province. The Saudi-led military coalition says it has destroyed an explosive-laden drone launched by the Houthis. The state media quoted the coalition as saying that the drone was headed in the kingdom's direction. Cross-border attacks by the Yemeni rebels have escalated since May, when a truce prompted by the coronavirus pandemic expired. In late June, missiles reached the Saudi capital Riyadh, and the coalition retaliated with airstrikes. At least 11 people have been killed and 8 others wounded in an attack on a military post in Iraq's capital city of Baghdad. Police say the attackers used grenades and automatic weapons. They said the assailants in 4 vehicles attacked the post in the city's Al-Radwaniya district. Police added security forces have started a search operation in the area. Earlier, Iraq's Joint Operation Command and the US-led coalition launched a major offensive against ISIS in the Salahuddin province. In a statement, the JOC says security forces seized militants' advanced weaponry. In Russia, 3 people have been killed in a shooting at the Baltimore military airfield near the southwestern city of Voronezh. Russia's state media said a soldier opened fire on his colleagues with a handgun which he took from an officer. It said the soldier has now barricaded himself on the territory of a military unit. The motive behind the shooting remains unclear. The Baltimore military airfield is part of the Air Force Academy. In Belarus, thousands of protesters have taken to the streets in the Belarusian capital city of Minsk. Over 300 people have been detained in the capital. The protesters are calling for President Alexander Lukashenko to resign after 26 years in power. The initial gathering in the center of the capital was dispersed by security services, but protesters later split out across the city, with scattered groups staging small demonstrations. The country has been rocked by mass protests since a controversial presidential election in August. Major powers, including the US and the EU, have imposed sanctions against a string of Belarusian officials. Austrian police have made 30 arrests in more than 60 days as part of an anti-terrorism operation, but the prosecutors ruled out any links of the arrests to the Vienna attack, which left 4 people dead. In a statement, the prosecutor's office said the latest raids were made in the country's 4 provinces. It added the operation targeted people suspected of links with the Palestinian Hamas group and the Muslim Brotherhood. The office further said authorities are investigating over 70 people on suspicion of belonging to the blacklisted groups. Austria has formally remanded 10 suspects in custody in connection with the Vienna attack so far. Thousands of people rallied in the Georgian capital Tbilisi against the results of the parliamentary elections. Dozens were injured as police used water cannon to disperse the demonstrators. The protesters held a peaceful rally at the Shota Rustaveli Avenue near the parliament during the day. The police said it used cannon after demonstrators tried to storm the Central Election Commission building. The Interior Ministry said the police used force because protesters did not obey the instructions. Opposition leaders called on supporters to leave the scene, announcing to hold more protests today. In the October 31st general elections, the ruling Georgian Dream Party emerged as the winner, prompting the opposition to protest. In Argentina, thousands of people protested in the capital city of Buenos Aires against the government and President Alberto Fernandez. They were protesting the ailing state of economy, pandemic lockdown measures, and proposed judicial reforms. Demonstrations brought the traffic to a standstill in the South American country's capital. Argentina's economy contracted by a record 19.1% in the second quarter, while analysts predict a 12% plunge in 2020. In Bolivia, Luis Arce has been sworn in as the country's president. The ceremony inaugurating Arce was held in the city of La Paz with several leaders in attendance. Heads of the state from Argentina, Paraguay, Colombia, Spain, and senior officials from Chile, Iran, and Venezuela were present at the ceremony. The newly sworn-in president has pledged to defeat the pandemic and heal the political rift in the country. The president said the former president, Evo Morales, will play no role in his government.
We assume this mandate given to us by the population, the people, to work tirelessly and with humility for the reconstruction of our country. We commit ourselves to rectify what was wrong and to deepen what was right.
More stories to follow, but right after a short break, stay tuned. Welcome back. In the United States, Joe Biden's advisors have begun discussing who can fill key posts after he pledged the most diverse cabinet in history. In his first speech as the president-elect, Biden vowed to unify the country. Biden and his running mate Kamala Harris have launched a transition website, Build Back Better, and a Twitter feed. They have listed the tackling COVID-19, racial inequality, and climate change as a top priority. His defeated rival Donald Trump continues to cast doubt on election results. His campaign has mounted legal challenges to the results in several states without offering any evidence. China and Russia have held their congratulatory messages to U.S. President-elect Joe Biden. The two countries have said they would wait for the final vote count to end, declaring results officially. China's foreign ministry said Beijing understands that U.S. election result will be determined following laws. At a media briefing, spokesman Wang Wenbin said although Biden declared victory, China would follow custom in responding to the result. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has also remained silent as Kremlin awaits for the official results. The Kremlin said it has also noted President Trump's announcement of legal challenges related to the vote. Earlier, Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador had also held off on congratulating U.S. President-elect Biden. Sikh community all around the world is celebrating the first anniversary of the inauguration of the Kartarpur Corridor in Pakistan. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan inaugurated the corridor to facilitate millions of Sikh pilgrims from India and around the world. More in this report.
Darbar Sahib Kartarpur is located in Narwal district of Pakistan, which is the last resting place of Sikh spiritual leader Guru Nanak Dev. The opening of the corridor last year took place on the eve of 550th birth anniversary of Guru Nanak. The Kartarpur Corridor has been widely recognized as a new symbol of peace by the world community. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres acknowledged the opening of the corridor as a practical proof of Pakistan's desire for peace and interfaith harmony. To mark the anniversary, Pakistan's Sikh Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee and Evacuee Trust Property Board are organizing a function at Kartarpur. On the other hand, home to the majority of Sikh, India has been attempting to malign the step taken in good faith by Pakistan. The corridor was closed amid the pandemic, but Pakistan announced to reopen it on the 3rd of October, while the Indian government has remained undecided. There has been outrage among the Sikh community in India over the issue. They said New Delhi has reopened all places of worship, then why not open the corridor?
Pakistanis all over the world are celebrating the 143rd birth anniversary of the country's national poet, Allama Muhammad Iqbal.
Across the country, various social and literary organizations are organizing seminars and exhibitions to honor Allama Iqbal's birthday. In his message, Pakistan's President Arif Alvi underscored the need for following Iqbal's teachings on Islam and his philosophy of self-realization. Prime Minister Imran Khan said Iqbal is a great mystic with a pure spirit and his thoughts continue to inspire and guide us. Born on the 9th of November 1877 in the northeastern Sialkot city, Iqbal conceived the conception of a separate homeland for Muslims. In his famous address in Allahabad, India, Iqbal said Muslims are a distinct nation and deserve independence. Iqbal produced literary works in Persian and Urdu languages. Of his 12,000 verses of poetry, about 7,000 verses are in Persian. His tremendous work in both languages earned him the title of the Poet of the East by literary critics.
Myanmar's ruling National League for Democracy party has proclaimed a victory in the general elections. The official vote counting is underway after yesterday's general polls, and the Election Commission is due to release early results today. 315 seats are up for grab in the 425-member lower house, while 161 in a 217-seat upper chamber. Aung San Suu Kyi's party claims it has won 322 seats in the parliament to form a government. Talking to media, NLD spokesperson thanked people and said it was an encouraging election result. Supporters of the party gathered in the biggest city, Yangon, to celebrate what they called Suu Kyi's win. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says the country will not plunge into chaos due to the military operation in the northern Tigray region. The Prime Minister said Ethiopia is grateful to friends expressing concerns over the current internal conflicts. In a tweet, Ahmed says such concerns are unfounded and the result of a lack of understanding about the country's context. He said the operation in Tigray is aimed at ensuring peace and stability by bringing the perpetrators of instability to justice. The Prime Minister concluded Ethiopia will wrap up the operation by ending the prevailing impunity. Earlier, Ahmed accused the Tigray People's Liberation Front has been preparing to go to war with the center since 2018. Meanwhile, Tigray's leadership said the Ethiopian military has launched more than 10 airstrikes in the region lately. French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian has asserted his country's profound respect for Islam during a visit to Cairo. The French official is in Egypt to ease tensions over France's defense of the publication of the blasphemous caricatures. Jean-Yves Le Drian held talks with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry. He also met Ahmed Al-Tayyib, the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Egypt's highest Muslim authority. In a press conference, Le Drian said Paris is fighting for the freedom of belief. In a statement, Al-Tayyib reiterated that blasphemous caricatures are completely unacceptable. Le Drian's visit also included discussions on Egypt's conflict-hit western neighbor Libya. He said France and Egypt were on the same page in demanding the immediate withdrawal of the foreign mercenaries from Libya. Spain's Canary Islands has noted a sharp increase in the number of migrants from West Africa. The government has recorded over 11,000 arrivals in the islands this year, compared with about 2,500 in 2019. Spanish emergency services said over 1,600 migrants have been rescued or reached at the Canary Islands over the weekend. Talking to media, Canary Services spokesperson said the migrants arrived on about 20 barely seaworthy boats. The spokesperson added the migrants have also been arriving on the islands of Gran Canaria, Tenerife and El Hierro. She said rescuers recovered a body of a migrant who died during the unsafe journey. Storm Eta has made a landfall in Florida with maximum sustained winds of 100 kilometers per hour. The National Hurricane Center has warned the tropical storm could strengthen into a hurricane near the Gulf of Mexico. Florida Power and Light says more than 37,000 households are currently without power. Earlier, the storm pounded central Cuba with torrential rain bursting the banks of the rivers and causing flash flooding. Thousands of people were evacuated ahead of Eta's landfall. State media says the storm knocked down trees and caused power outages. The outer hands of Eta also caused a landslide in Jamaica's capital city of Kingston, isolating residents. The death toll from the calamitous storm in Central America has crossed 150. Thousands of rare photos of space exploration are up for auction at Christie's in London. A rare photograph of astronaut Neil Armstrong on the surface of the moon is part of a comprehensive collection.
The Voyage to Another World collection, curated over decades, is a mix of iconic images that were unreleased at the time by NASA. The auction house says the sale of over 2,400 photographs documents the Apollo missions and the golden age of space exploration.
So this is an incredibly exciting collection of photographs, and we are honoured at Christie's to have been entrusted with the sale. It's 700 lots, over 2,400 photographs in total, documenting the artistic heritage of the Apollo missions and the golden age of space exploration.
The sale's top lot is an unreleased photograph of Neil Armstrong taken in 1969 when he became the first human to step on the moon. The photograph is expected to go for $39,000. Another image due to go under the hammer is of Armstrong's crewmate Buzz Aldrin when he managed to photograph himself during the 1965 space mission.
It's the first selfie in space. We're so used to selfies these days as being easy and done by everyone, but this is a big camera that Buzz Aldrin had to turn around and pointed himself with a beautiful image of the Earth in the background.
Other items range from early images of the far side of the moon from the late 50s to the NASA and Apollo missions of the 1960s and 70s, and ending with images of the Red Planet. Christie's online auction will run till the 20th of November.
American company Virgin Hyperloop has trialed its first ever journey with passengers in the desert of Nevada. The futuristic transport concept involves pods inside vacuum tubes carrying passengers at high speeds. Company executives were present in the pod when it hurtled through a vacuum tube at 107 miles per hour. Virgin Hyperloop has previously run over 400 tests without human passengers. The company says it is working towards safety certification by 2025 and commercial operations by 2030. Canada's Transport and Spain's Celeros also aim to use similar technology. It will reduce travel times, congestion, and environmental harm linked to petroleum fuel machines. Iran says its oil industry will not succumb to sanctions imposed by the United States. Oil Minister Bijan Zanganeh said Tehran is neither afraid of the sanctions nor does it affect its work. He said there is nothing left for Washington to sanction any longer. Last month, Washington imposed sanctions on Iran's oil ministry alongside other entities. Zanganeh was also blacklisted by the U.S. Treasury Department. Tensions between Washington and Tehran have soared since President Donald Trump withdrew from Iran's nuclear accord. US stocks have rallied to record levels after first successful late-stage COVID-19 vaccine trials stirred hopes for economic recovery. The Dow Jones Industrial Average traded higher by about 5% and hit an all-time high. The S&P 500 also reached a record after popping 3.7%. However, the Nasdaq Composite was the relative underperformer, trading higher by about 1%. Meanwhile, oil prices jumped by almost 10% after positive vaccine news. This is the highest daily rise in almost 6 months. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.